So, how do we get this thing of pulling the trigger? How do we make that happen? What are situations that we're going to come into with it? Because everybody has this problem. I mean, I've had this problem. A lot of you might think, well, if you know me or know more of my story, it's like I'm very good at pulling the trigger. But at the same time, it's like, how do we pull the trigger for what we want? And for a lot of guys, that's going to be like, how do we get laid?
Well, first, and we talked about this last night, logistics trumps everything, right? You got to be in the right place in the right time and be alone.
Yeah.
You got to be alone. And it far and away trumps everything.
You know, one thing that we talked about last night, so we were on a workshop last night, that's where this is all coming from, is that, you know, Pickup has handled this. You know, like a lot of Nick Quick stuff. In fact, I'd say CJ stuff handled this. This is 10 years, well, not 10 years, but 8 years old, okay? When you're in a conversation with somebody and your motive is sex, and at some point that should be something in everybody's life. You know, so in fact, why don't you just say this to everybody that you meet at a bar after 10 p.m., even more relevant at midnight. You're in your first dialogue, you should ask,
who did you come with? Right. How did you get here? When are you going home?
You have to work early in the morning. Like, what is in the way of the potential of this happening? Now, just because you're going with that, you're fishing for that, doesn't mean that's your only game plan. You could make friends with this person. You could have a relationship with this person. You could go on dates with this person. That's all fine and good. But you need to be focused on this, and there should be nothing wrong with being like, hey, how's it going? My name's Steve, or you're the hottest, or whatever your opener is. Just be like, man, this is literally what we would say. So back in 2007, this was it. It was like, hey, what's going on? Whatever opener, tattoos on girls, bullshit or whatever. You go like, so how do you guys all know each other? Like, oh, wait a minute, did you drive? What? Okay, so you drove. I think that says something about your personality. Or something like that. It's all just to find out like what the situation is. Are these and this is why we're trying to figure it out. Are these girls gonna go home with each other? So that means you would have to somehow finagle your way into a car with 3 other girls or 4 other girls or whatever. And we've all done that, but it makes things a lot harder. Now, if she got a ride, then she can get a ride from you. But one of the recipes of, you know, a faster sexual experience is don't follow them or don't drive separately. There's a lot that could go wrong in that car ride. And so that's why we're looking for that information. Also, like, do you have to work in the morning, or, you know, what's happening a little bit later? Are you going home early? You want to find all that stuff out. And one of the reasons for it is that if there is the situation that we saw last night at that last bar where it was like obvious, if there's sexual intent, we then don't need rapport. We don't need all this other stuff that a lot of people, we don't need like this social, cool, whatever value shit. We need to let it go and find out a way to leave with them.
Really and truly, in 10 minutes, they could have left.
Yeah.
In 10 minutes, they could have left and both been into it.
Dude, there's a couple things that happened. And, you know, just to piss off the nouveau pickup crowd, I'm going to use the word set, because there's all these people like, you use the word target, you're horrible. And it's like, man, shut the fuck up. Like, just go with it. In any case, so one of our guys was standing there with us. I was like, man, you're going to leave. You're going to go home and go to sleep. Like, and he's like, I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I worked all week. You know, you knew this was going to happen. I was like, just talk to these girls right here. You know, ask them about something stupid or whatever. And so he talked to them, and immediately the girl was like, oh, wow. And like leaning up and touching him. And also touching his, cool, like, to the center. And it wasn't just like, oh yeah, it was like, it was going towards the chest. Like, she wanted to make an impact. At that point, and later in talking to him, he got it too. It's like, cool, I could lay this chick tonight.
Yeah, nice girl. She knew where it was at.
20 seconds into it, that was
she was maybe 30 years old.
Yeah.
Early 30s, maybe. Yeah. This girl knew where it was. It was at.
Yeah, and so this guy then it was actually great. I was like so happy because he matched all of it. He leaned back into her, which a lot of people say is not good, but leaning in can be intent, or it could be being needy. You want to show the intent. I always
it was two-way. It was two-way.
But it was good.
Yeah.
Oh, it was good. And, he's talking to her for a while. The other best part of this is there were two girls, and
Oh, the other one was like bored.
this is the other one.
Stiff.
The other one.
She was sitting back closing her eyes like, oh, God.
But
here we go again.
this is so right before this interaction happened, he said, I'm always bogged down by all the mystery stuff. You need to occupy the group or whatever. And I was like, dude, you don't need that. Like, you saw my post on the Facebook group the other day. Like, I don't need a wingman ever.
He never looked at the second girl. The second girl, like, never looked at him. She's sitting over there going, oh, God, not again.
I don't know how long it was, but 15 or 20 minutes.
These guys every fucking time we go on, she's
Yeah.
picking up.
Yeah. And she wanted her friend to get laid. That was very obvious.
Yeah,
so
that's what they came for. She brought her wing girl.
And the situation was that girl was traveling from a different part of the country, and the girl that was being ignored lived in Austin. And it was just like, hey, I hope my friend gets laid. That was basically it. She sat there. He never even asked the other girl the name. And the other thing, too, is one of the other guys was like, well, let's go wing for him, which is cool. And especially if we're on a workshop and where people need to get their approaches down. But this guy had already gotten his approaches down. And the dude that was in set did not need a wing. And you don't need a wing. Like, I never need one.
The other girl was not giving him a problem. She was not trying to participate at all,
and he never acknowledged her. Like maybe he took their picture at the beginning, but then after that, it was like, pfft.
It's logistics just trump everything as far as going home with her. But there's another level of logistics once you get her home. If you're really serious about this. If you're really serious about being a single man, being a bachelor, and having sex once in a while, having women be a part of your life, you need to set your life up to do that. You need to set your life up to do that. You need to get your own place. You need to live in the right place. I live in the country, and any of you who do live way out in the country, that the possibilities are limited. If you're really serious about this, move not necessarily to the city, but in closer to the city, where there are people.
Let me chime in with this though too. It's like if you don't have that opportunity to live in the city, because when I first started, I lived in Fort Worth and I would go to Dallas. So that's a 30, 40-minute drive. And also CJ lived about 20 to 30 minutes from anywhere as well in a not so popular area. And we would get those drives. So the interesting thing is like, if a girl got in the car with us and she went on that 20-minute drive, there was only one reason to do that, or that 30 or 40-minute drive. It was to have sex. So you got to realize, like, when you're setting up your place, like, number one, even if it is downtown, it should be where a woman could have a sexual experience. Mm-hmm. If that's not there, then you have fucked up. So I see, like, I started out with a disadvantage and made it work. And it actually helped because it was such an obvious disadvantage when girls got in my car or we went on that trek. There's no reason for us to find a bathroom somewhere if I couldn't go to my place. There was no reason for us to be like, man, I'm too tired to drive home. I got to crash at your place. That, like, it was pretty obvious what was happening. It wasn't explicitly said, we're going to fuck, because that'll kind of bury you a little bit. So there needs to be an intention with the pull that isn't like, what's going to throw off red flags, like, we need to fuck. It's like, well, man, I'm too tired to drive home. Let me crash at your place. Or, let's say there are 4 people, there are 4 girls, and she's got to give a ride home to all of her friends. It's like, all right. And this would always happen. We were talking about this last night. Should we just ditch him? Should we just leave him, so that he would be forced to get a ride home with her? But that's what we would do. So it's like, well, there's 3 girls that she's got to drop off. And she has a car where we would all be packed in, be like, fuck, my friends left me. Whether I was leaving my car or my friends really did leave me, I would take a cab to that bar the next day to sit sandwiched in with all those girls and say, like, I need a ride home. She'd drop her friends off, or maybe say to drop me off first. And I'd say, like, no, don't drop me off first. I want to chill out first.
And there's another thing that we should probably talk about, and that's getting a motel room. You're going to... Excuse me.
Yeah.
You're going to need that. You're going to need to do that. And it's easier than you ever imagined.
Totally.
Let's find some place where we can be alone. Really alone. I just want to be really alone with you for a few minutes. Oh, wait. Look, let's pull in that motel. And she'll go, oh, yeah, okay.
And man, if that's something that gets too many red flags, you could even go a little bit more covert. Because see, if you bring up sex directly to a woman, she can oftentimes argue it. Because it's like a disrespecting thing to her. She wants you to have sex with her.
Almost a reflex.
Yeah, right? Yeah. But not just see her as a sexual object, right? So basically, a lot of things that I would say is like, man, I'm just going to get a hotel to crash. But like, come up and make sure there's no robbers in there. Or like, let's check it out. Or some shit.
Well,
you know.
That's you. Whatever. But it's easier than you ever imagined.
Yeah.
To get into a motel room with a woman.
But really, it was like, man, I'm going to check in or whatever. Come up for a second. Hang out. You know, very, very easy to do. And it's, man, again, skills every guy should get.
Diego was the master.
That's true. He was actually really good at, and he would be very verbal with it all. Like, where's that guy? But, you know, that actually makes me think of the first time I went to a workshop in Vegas. So I was a coach, and I was with all these guys. I was with John, who goes by Sin. I was with this other guy named John, who didn't stand that long. And we were coaching all these people. I'm like, so this is my first time with all these like super pro pickup guys. So I thought they were like always getting laid all the time, and they did. But this doesn't always happen, guys. But I'm like on fire. I'm excited. And I could stay up all night back then and do all the shit. So it's like 4 a.m.
Back in the day.
And I forget what casino we're in. This is actually sad because it no longer exists, and I forget the name. And we're walking through, and I see a girl, and she's like what everybody would consider as hot. And I was just like, hey. And it's like 4 a.m., and she's kind of drunk, and, you know, we're all in that mode, right? And she immediately, like, is responsive to me. And I'm like, oh, my God, you know, I'm on fire. And I kind of was. So we're talking, and we're just talking. The next thing I know, so we were inside the casino. The next thing I know is I look towards the door. I see all the other instructors going, hey, see you later, Steve. We're catching a ride home. Like you said, you want to do that thing. Bye. And they just left me, and I was like, fuck. And this was when I had a good recipe of being really sexually aggressive and going for it, but I didn't know how to do it smoothly. And I knew all my buddies would ask me about it and dog me if I fucking didn't get laid, right? So basically she was staying at the Tropicana or something, which is like really cheap and shitty and all that sort of shit. And we get there, we get to her place, and I don't realize the logistics. Her friends are in there, right? Her friends are in there hanging out. And so we're in the hallway, and I walk her up there, and we're like making out. And I'm like grabbing her boobs. I'm like, this is happening. This is like so cool. This is like the first night of the PUA coaching, whatever. Oh my God. And she was hot, right? And she's like, okay, stop. I got to go in. And I'm like, no, we're going in. And she's like, no. Like, and so I'm like, what do I do?
Like, stop.
Yeah, right.
Stop.
So it's like, she's like, well, this was fun.
Yeah.
You know, I hooked up with a guy
stop.
in Vegas, and cool. I have my woman power. And I'm like, no. And so then I start doing what every guy does. Well, every guy either leaves or he desperately tries to escalate. So I desperately try to escalate. I'm like, no, come here. And you become, it's so awesome because the guy, you get like so whiny. You're like, no, please, come on. Like, and like, you know, then I do the mistake of escalating on her. So it's like, I'm going to make out harder. I'm going to touch her crotch. I'm going to rather than get her involved with me. And she fucking leaves. And it sucked. Like, you know, after 5 or 10 minutes of that, she eventually was like, no, I'm going inside and you're shutting up and leaving. Here. And then you do the walk of shame back and you're just like, what can I tell I can make up a story about this. Anyway, the funny thing is, you know, from that, I realized, like, man, and as soon as I got back and said I didn't get laid, they're like, why didn't you bring her back here? You know, we'd all wait in the other room. We'd all wait in the casino, which that was the cool thing about those guys. But that's what you got to do. You have to have your game plan down. If you don't have the situation, no matter how good or badass you are, it fails for you. And when it can be a good situation, it really unfolds for you. It, like, you don't have to do anything to make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.